from Austin, Texas, on this overcast day, it's Color Commentary, and we are Adrian Guarzales
and Michael Petchek, and we're back after I went off to get married. It's been
3 weeks,
2.5. I know we had to pre-record 3 episodes, so
yes.
But I got married. My brother, threw together a draft for my bachelor party, which was pretty sweet.
Conspiracy.
Yeah, conspiracy. It's a good, easy draft format, and it's multiplayer and all that good stuff, so...
It seems pretty good for a bachelor party.
Yeah. I cracked a Dak Faden, so,
Nice.
More trade fodder for...
I cracked a Dak Faden my first conspiracy draft, and I think I sold him for $20.
He's not much more than that.
Okay, now. Good. That makes me feel better about my life.
Yeah, no. He came way down with EMA. But, I got married. Real beautiful ceremony. Took like 2 weeks off and did jack shit. And now, I'm just
back to the grind of making Pauper podcasts and playing grindy decks, I suppose.
I missed it. I'm not going to lie. I did miss, interacting with this. I was, always on my phone, in downtime, just being like, what Pauper news is there? Let me check the daily results. Alex Ullman, give me content.
Yeah, you were tweeting a lot. You've been very active on Twitter lately. If you get a comment from someone on Twitter, it's 99% chance it's Mike and not me.
Yeah, I'm definitely more interactive and definitely more willing to voice my opinion, even if I'm disagreeing with someone.
I prefer to sit in my panoptical ivory tower and judge everyone.
So, you played in 3 FNMs and you didn't play Affinity.
I did once. Okay, so the first FNM, I played Esper Drake combo because it had just newly legal Esper familiar.
Okay, so you played the Esper version, and how did you do with that?
I went 2-2.
Okay.
I beat a teachings deck with the combo, and I beat something, but I don't really remember. I lost to just Delver. It's just turn 1 Delver, turn 2 counterspell. That's rough.
Yeah. I don't think you're getting out of
that. Week 2, I played Affinity. I went 2-1. I played. My only loss was to Freed from the Real combo, which I actually don't think is that bad. Yeah, man. He had the nuts against me. But during game 1, and so this goes back to our BM episode, and I already told you the story, but I want to say it on the podcast. Our bad manners.
Yeah.
Not our bowel movement episode. He transmuted Drift of Phantasms, which is a 3-cost spell to go get Freed from the Real. And for those of you who don't know, if the Freed from the Real combo involves putting Freed from the Real, which is an enchantment that says you untap permanent or you tap permanent, and you put it on Axebane Guardian, and Axebane Guardian taps for mana of any color equal to your defenders, and you basically just make infinite mana with Axebane Guardian and this spell. And he said, you can go ahead and concede now. And I was like, no.
And then you bolted a dude and killed him.
I Galvanic blasted his dude in response. And he looks at me and he's like, Galvanic Blast is main deck for Affinity? And I was like, yes.
Yeah, don't f***ing pull the terrible... You might as well concede now.
Yeah, if you must do that, play Phyrexian Revoker and name Abandon Hope. At least be classy about it. And then... last week, so this most recent Friday, I played Mono Green Stompy. Me and another local player switched decks. He got to play my beautiful, almost all foiled, missing 3 foils Affinity deck. And I played Stompy, and I crushed. Stompy is awesome. I'm gonna build it. That deck is so good. I imagine the matchups where you lose, it's extremely painful. But I did really well. I played against Mono Black Land Destruction. So we lost Sinkhole at our store currently, but he was playing Evil Presence, Sinkhole.
What does Evil Presence do?
It turns a land into a swamp.
Does he have Swamp Walkers? Is that what the deal is?
It just made it so I couldn't tap for green. But basically, turn 3, he Ice Quaked my only forest, and I had out a Young Wolf, and he killed that. So I'm sitting with no board. And then I top deck a land, and I play a Kyrian Rangers. He goes to blow it up again. I bounce the land back to my hand, and from there, I must have gone 4 or 5 turns with no land, and he was just unable to close out the game and take advantage of my lack. I was discarding spells in Mono Green Stompy. I was like, wow, this game is over. But I didn't concede, and I ended up pulling out the game. It was great.
Yeah, you can't just concede unless all hope is actually lost.
Yeah, well, he had no pressure, so there was no reason for me to stop playing. Basically,
I mean, So we'll see how that shakes out though with the sinkhole. Like it didn't feel oppressive.
It didn't feel bad for me. I know that one of our Drake players played against him and just got absolutely destroyed by it because he evil presenced a bounce land. And it's like, what can you do? He cuts you off of mana stores, and suddenly it's these two colors that you can't fix for anymore that you need in your deck.
I mean, Spreading Seas is still a thing. It's not that great against UR Drake, but like it's not like a problem.
Evil Presence costs B.
Oh, so, just one black?
So it's actually much better. It doesn't draw you the card now, but for the land destruction standpoint, it is much better than Spreading Seas.
It is also just a brick against mono black control.
Yeah, it seems weird to play main deck. He was also playing Desert's main deck. And at first I was a little worried because I had to reread it a few times, but it doesn't work till after combat. So if I attack, pump my guy, he can't actually deal with my guy anymore. Also, Silhana Ledgewalker. That was super duper good.
But yeah, it sounds like you had a good time. I'm excited to get back and play Pauper. Like I don't know what I'm gonna play. I kind of want. I've got like my eye on like a bunch of brews as always. Like I don't know if you saw 8686's Mardu Tortured Existence deck.
I think we may have looked at it a little bit before an episode last time.
Yeah, but it cuts out the like infinite recursion thing and just plays creatures that are good. So even if you don't hit Tortured Existence, you can still win.
That's actually really interesting because Tortured Existence is that card's best deck. That deck's best card. And if it doesn't draw it, it's almost the wheels fall off.
And that was his idea. He just made he's got like a Ponyback Brigade.
I love Ponyback Brigade.
He's got all these like super value-y creatures, and if he gets Tortured Existence, the game is just like going to go super well. But even if he doesn't, he's still playing just like Mardu good stuff. So it kind of works out well for no matter what the situation is.
We should review that sometime. Sorry, 8666, we're not getting to it today, but I would love to see a deck that runs Ponyback Brigade.
Yeah. Speaking of decks, we're gonna jump right into our deck tech here, and we're gonna talk about my favorite deck in the format, probably Pig Trinket.
Yeah, and it's when Mike first showed me this deck, I was like, what is this pile? But it's actually really fun. I built it on Moto. I think my record with it is maybe like
8-2.
Yeah, 8-2, 10-3, something. I played it a little bit more. It's extreme. It's a way more consistent than I thought it would be for a 3-color deck. And I know one of my biggest arguments against 3-color decks is that they're not very good because of the fixing's all bad. But as you pointed out, this is actually a mono black deck. It just happens to play blue and green spells.
Yeah, it's basically mono black splashing blue and green for obscene value.
Yeah, so basically the premise of the deck is that you use Trinket Mage to get Sylvok Lifestaff, which was whenever a creature dies, you gain 2 life, and it gets +0 is a creature +0/+1. And you run
+1/+0 actually.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I got those mixed up. And you run like Secure Tribeller, Fumes, and Fume Spitter, and you just like recur them with
Grim Harvest.
Yeah, over and over again, and you just grind out your opponent. It's super duper sweet. But let's get. I'll let you describe it since it's your favorite deck. Go ahead.
All right. So our creature suite is 2 Brindleboar, 2 in a green, 2/2, sacrifice it, gain 4 life. Which, when you have 2 Sylvok Lifestaffs on it, is just chump your dude, sack my creature, gain 10, or eat your creature because it's a 4/2 now. 3 copies of Crypt Rats, which is one of Pauper's best like pseudo wrath effects.
Also a win con.
Yes, also a win con. There have been games which I've just that dude and a Sylvok Lifestaff clear the board, gain 3 life, and just kind of grind it out. 2 Croson Tusker. Croson Tusker is a 6/5 for 5 and 2 green, but it has cycling 2 and a green, and when you cycle it, you also get to tutor a basic land to hand. So it's fixing, it's card draw, and it's a finisher once you get the Grim Harvest to get it back.
Yeah, and that's how I've been closing out a lot of my games.
Yep, and if you toss like a Sylvok Lifestaff on it, it suddenly goes from a 4-turn clock to a 3-turn clock.
It's extremely good in this deck.
Yes, and it's just a vanilla 6/5 for 7.
Well, the reason it's so good is the cycling ability.
Yes. Then we've got 4 Muldrifter, because you're playing blue, you should play Muldrifter and just draw a bunch of cards. Also, going to skip down the list a little bit, it does have Undying Evil, and for anyone who hasn't seen this, if you evoke a Muldrifter, you can Undying Evil in response to the evoke trigger, and get 4 cards and a 3/3 flyer for 4 mana. So, not bad. It runs 4 copies of Secure Tribe Elder. So, early turn, chump, sack before damage, get a basic land into play. So, just some ramp. Fume Spitter, 1 black for a 1/1. You can sacrifice it to put a -1/-1 counter on something. This is one of the best loops in the deck, because if, let's say they're attacking you with a Gurmag Angler, and you have the mana to recur your Fume Spitter every turn, you can just sit there, loop Fume Spitter, and every time the Angler gets a little bit smaller. And they can't really bounce it and get value out of that.
These creatures are almost unkillable. If they try... I had someone try and Journey to Nowhere my Fume Spitter, and I sacked it and targeted itself, which is a totally viable play.
And that's one of the things that makes this deck so good, is that you can just get these creatures into the graveyard if they would go somewhere else. We've got a 3 of Trinket Mage. Now, there is a version that doesn't run the Trinket Mage package, but in this deck, Trinket Mage is grabbing you either one of the 2 Sylvok Lifestaffs, which is part of the engine. There's a Tree of Tail and a Vault of Whispers, so you can ramp with it. And there's also a 2 of Executioner's Capsule main deck, which it's Doomblade on a stick. And while, Doomblade's not great against mono black, the decks it's not dead against, it's just so good.
Yeah, I would say Capsule is much better than Doomblade, especially, if you're running Trinket Mage, it's a no-brainer to run the Capsule over the Doomblade. You can tutor it. If you don't need it, you don't have to tutor it.
It also makes a great turn 1 play against blue.
Yes.
Because you can't counter it once it's down. We do not have Stifle in the format.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's just really good.
Then we've got 4 Chainer's Edict, 2 Deep Analysis, 3 Tragic Slip, because we're sacrificing things anyway, and nothing in this format lives through a -13/-13. It's... except Boggles, but you can't kill them with it anyway, so... I have occasionally kept it in to deal with Aura Gnarlid, because that can get out of hand. But then we've got 2 Undying Evils and 2 Grim Harvests. And Grim Harvest is, one of my pet cards. It just is an engine on its own. It's, a little... It's kind of a side upgrade to Tortured Existence, in that it's still a very engine-y card. But it has the advantage of, even if they counter it, you don't care.
Yeah, so the reason Grim Harvest is so great is it has an ability called Recover, so whenever a creature you control dies, you can pay
2 and a black.
Yeah, 2 and a black, and bring it back to your hand.
Yeah.
So the only way they can blow you out is if they somehow kill a creature while you're tapped out, and if you have the Grim Harvest in your graveyard, you probably shouldn't be tapping out.
Yeah, the guideline that I got when I first picked up this deck was, if there's a Grim Harvest, make sure you have 3 mana open, and because you have all these instant speed sacrifice effects... you can just get it back. You can force the recover trigger to go off.
Oh.
And that works great.
I think it's better to think of it as a 5-mana spell that you get back to your hand.
Yes, 100%. There are 2 in here just because you don't want one of them getting eaten up by Graveyard Hate, and you just kind of hold one in case they have the hate.
I don't think you need 4, or even 3. I think 2 is fine.
Well, the thing is, Grim Harvests are kind of a diminishing returns card. The more of them you draw, it doesn't actually get better.
Yeah, because you can only cast so many.
The games where I have 2 in hand in my opener, I'm kind of like, this isn't all that great. I don't like this. But...
well, now, if I had 1 in hand and I draw one turn 7, I don't think I mind it that much, because then I can recur 2 things at a time without having to worry about sacrificing something to get the other one back.
Well, the catch is you kind of got to play that careful dance, because then you have to keep 6 open or one of them's going to go away.
That's true.
So, the other thing is, doing these on an empty board has no risk. If your board is empty and end of turn you get something back, you don't need the 3 mana.
Right.
So the fact that it's an instant is pretty major in terms of how this card functions. We can the land base is a huge mess. It's 2 islands, 2 jungle hollows, 2 Simic growth chambers, 5 swamps, 2 terramorphic expanses, because Evolving Wilds is for suckers. And
sure, I'm an Evolving Wilds guy myself. There's better art.
Yeah, the FNM promo is real sexy.
I picked one of those up recently.
Ooh, I need one of those for my cube. But digressing, 2 Thornwood Falls, a Tree of Tails, and a Vault of Whispers as targets for your Trinket Mage. And then we've got 2 Bajuka Bogs, which is a nice, built-in anti-graveyard card, which with the Simic Growth Chambers you can get value out of. Then 2 forests.
And before you move on from the land base, I would also like to point out what we said earlier. This is primarily a mono black deck that's splashing for a couple of these other different cards. And this is something we've discussed before the podcast, but whenever you're tutoring a land, unless like with a Terramorphic or a Sakura Tribe Elder, unless you absolutely need that other color, 9 times out of 10 it's correct to go for a swamp.
Yes, you want as much black mana available so you can Crypt Rats for huge amounts.
Yes.
It also means that you don't have to be as careful with your mana tapping on Grim Harvest, so you don't accidentally like goozle yourself and have 3 mana untapped and none of it's black. But it's definitely like a very interesting deck. It's, very grindy. Super, super grindy. This is one of those ones where the more time you put in with it, the better you're going to be, because you're not going to be losing to the clock on Moto. Or, like, even in paper, this goes to time. Like, this is a real grindy deck, and when I play this in paper, I kind of accept that the best I'm going to do is winning the first game, and then hoping that the second one goes to time. It's not got great matchups against, the super fast decks. Like, you're not going to do super well against elves, although you can, depending on your draw and their draw.
Rats is just so good against
Rats is really good. If you can get the rats on board really quickly, it's great. It's wonderful in that matchup. It has some trouble against your Delver Fiend kind of decks, just because there's, not much you can do that's really quick. But
how's your Drake matchup?
I don't know. I have not played this deck since Drake came back.
I kind of want to play this Friday.
It was really good against Familiars when they were playing Cloud, because hitting that turn 1 Fume Spitter just meant that you had an out unless they could snap it. And even then, you could pop a counter on something, and if you had 2 out, you could maybe kill the Archaeomancer if they were playing that. I think your matchup is okay. The blue-red Drake is the one that we're seeing the most of online, and it does kind of invalidate a lot of their burn, unless they're just going to point it at your face.
Can't flame slash my face, though, so...
Exactly. Like, you've got a lot of stuff where burn is just bad against it. So I think I'd honestly say that's probably like a 40-60 matchup, where you're a little non-favored just because you don't have the fastest clock. And there's not a lot of instant speed removal. But let's look at the sideboard. So 1 Brindleboar, 1 Crypt Rats, 1 Deep Analysis. So just double up for when you need them, Crypt Rats comes in against Swarm decks. Anything with small toughnesses, it's great against. Brindleboar comes in against Burn.
Goblins.
Any of the fast decks. Deep Analysis comes in against some of the blue decks when you just need the more card draw.
I have been bringing that in against Teachings.
Yes. 4 Duress against the control decks, so you can get the counterspells out of their hand. 2 Nihil Spellbomb. It's a one-sided graveyard hate card.
That'd be good against Drake.
Yes. That does give you game. 2 Okiba Gang Shinobi, which is the black ninjutsu card that mind rots them when it hits, and is backbreaking in some matches.
What do you bring that in against?
I've brought it in against Delver.
That seems good.
I've brought it in against any sort of like any sort of blue control deck that doesn't have stuff to pull back from the graveyard. So I don't bring it in against Teachings. It is also a 3/2, which makes it a bigger body than some of the stuff in this deck. But it's really sweet when you've got like your shenanigans with Grim Harvest. So you can just be like, all right, Grim Harvest back Okiba Gang Shinobi, and then they just know that if they don't block every threat, they're getting mind rotted.
Why don't you tell everyone about your favorite Pauper play ever?
Yes, against a blue Delver player, like probably 3 weeks into me picking up this deck, I was swinging in for lethal with one creature, some other creature, and an Okiba Gang Shinobi, and I was like, all right, attack. He goes, no blocks. So we're in blockers, and then he tries to snap my Okiba Gang Shinobi. And I had another one in the bin, and I had 6 mana, so I Grim Harvested back an Okiba Gang Shinobi, ninjutsu'd it in, and fizzled the snap for lethal. And it was like,
wow.
it felt really good on my part because I was like, oh man, this is I just got the next level play, and I wound up winning that match, which was
The NLPs.
Yeah,
That's really sweet.
And then to round out the sideboard, they've got 4 Wicker Bow Elders because, hoo boy, a 4/4 body in this format can get work done against enchantment-based decks.
So you bring that in against Boggles, perhaps. You bring it in against Affinity, definitely.
Yep.
You bring it against anything that wants to play the enchantment. I mean, it might even be good against Jeskai Kitty, honestly, because it gets their journeys, which is bad for you.
Yeah.
And it hits some of their lands.
It matches up very favorably against Affinity because it's a 3/3 that comes in with a 4/4 that comes in with a -1/-1 counter on it. And for 1 green, you can remove the counter from it and blow up an artifact or enchantment.
It's pretty good.
So
and then
it eats Sulling in Affinity and then trades with Sulling in Affinity.
yeah, so it's like, oh, blow up your Mirror Enforcer, good luck attacking with your Carapace Forger.
Yep. Yeah, it's incredibly efficient against that deck.
Yeah, I'm going to play this deck next Friday. So now.
Good luck. You got your Chainer's Edicts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who do you think I am?
I'm just saying, they're like $6 goddamn now.
I have them. I think I have most of these cards. The cards that I think I'm missing are actually like Deep Analysis.
Yeah,
And I think
like
that's
50 cents.
And I think that's literally it.
But, yeah, no. Super solid deck. I do think it's tier 1.5 or so. And I think the big thing is it does have a lot of complex play to it for a control deck. I don't think it's as complex as, some of the more esoteric teachings builds. But it definitely requires you to sit down and think about your plays. Like, I've definitely had, like, there was one week where I played this and it was a four round tournament, and by the end of it, I was starting to get a little bit of a headache just because every match had gone to time, and every match I'd had to be like, all right.
If every match goes to time, you're playing more Magic, though.
I am. Time-wise, not game-wise.
Yes, time-wise, you're playing the most Magic, so.
This is also horrible against Dimir teachings. Like, it's just a slog. Like, it really comes down to luck of the draw and tight play. Like, our resident teachings player, Nathan, and I have gone to time so many times in this matchup.
He hasn't been playing Pauper a lot lately, so maybe that's a window.
Yeah. I'm just concerned about the blue-red Drake matchup on this, because I have not had a chance to test it against that, and I feel like it's probably an unfavorable matchup. And we've had a lot of people trying that out, relatively.
But those decks haven't been doing very well, and I don't know if that's the players or the deck, but those decks have been consistently going 2-2. I mean, I guess one week one of them went 4-0, but I don't know. I feel like when I played Drake, and granted, I'm not a very good combo player, so, but I don't know. I think that. So, that's another interesting conversation, because I see a lot of people wanting to ban Drake. I know this is getting away from our deck tech a little, but
it's too early.
It's too early, and it doesn't feel like it's powerful, but it doesn't honestly feel oppressive. Like, the thing about fairies is they could do it on turn 3, you know, and the Drake player still has to go to turn 4.
Yeah, I think it is way, way, way too early for us to even consider banning it. There was something on the Magic developers blog where they mentioned that they were aware of Pauper, and apparently the developers do actually think about it. So we have actual confirmation that they do pay attention to our format. Senpai has noticed us. But they basically said, we were aware that Cloud of Fairies just got banned, and we were aware that we were downshifting Drake into Pauper.
But the way that they wrote on the blog that I saw was that they had already, the way that their scheduling worked, they'd already finished EMA, and then Cloud got banned.
Yes.
So there was no taking back the fact that Drake was now at common.
Yeah, it was probably actually already at the printer by the time that happened. So, But people have said, maybe this is an indication it's getting banned. I think it needs time to shake out. Last I checked, it was 8% of the meta.
Yeah, it's nowhere near the top.
Well, 8% of the 5-0s. I think there's more people playing it. I think that it is still a very kind of convoluted deck, and we still haven't really figured out what the best answer to it is. Is it blue-red? Is it blue-green?
So here's the thing. I think it is a terrible matchup against Delver. And as long as Delver is one of the top decks in the format, that deck will always keep the Drake deck in check. Any deck that main decks 6 or 7 or 8 counter spells is going to be great against the Drake deck. And that's happened to me, where I'm like, oh, my turn 1 play got dazed, my turn 2 play got counterspelled, my turn 3 play got deprived. And it's I can't win this game anymore.
Yeah, I definitely think that it does have rough matchups, and much more so than Esper Familiars did.
Yeah.
So Channel Fireball ran a poll online. Channel Fireball, one of the premier Magic retailers and runners of GPs.
We might as well just say call a spade, Wizards 2.0.
Yeah, asked, do you think Pauper should be a GP format? And I think this is partially because Paul Cheon was on the Community Super League and played Dimir Teachings and had a fun time. So I think that, LSV's little buddy convinced him to let him put a poll up. But,
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So what do you think about this? Would you go to a Pauper GP?
Yeah, I would go wherever it was. I would go. I would travel. I want to say I would go anywhere in North America to play in a Pauper GP.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be. If I could,
Europe?
I would travel internationally. I don't know if the logistics for that would work for me.
Yeah.
But I would if I could.
Okay, saying money's no object or that it happens like right down the road from us.
Definitely would go. The biggest problem that I can see, and it's weird that no one has brought this up, or maybe they have and I just haven't seen it, is that the biggest issue is that until they reconcile the Moto ban list with the paper ban list, a Pauper GP can't happen.
Yes, there needs to be some sort of decision made on that front.
And the developers have said that they're not going to do that.
Yes. Well, Matt Tabak said he rules. So we don't know if it proves popular enough, they might move on it. That's the thing.
And part of me also, and I hate to be cynical here, part of me also thinks that, it's great that Pauper's finally getting this coverage, but also it's how long will this hold people's attention? I feel like Pauper has ebbed and flowed before, and it's sure, there's a lot of interest now because EMA just came out and there's all these new sweet cards in the format, but I really hope that it'll have... It needs staying power.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things is a lot of people who've been commenting on this have said, maybe this is a great GP for people who are more casual to come out and play.
No.
And I have to disagree with that strongly. Do you want little Timmy who plays at the kitchen table to show up and get capsize locked? That is not fun.
Pauper is actually kind of a brutal format, and we touched on this in our brewing episode, but it has a very established meta with very established archetypes. And yeah, there are rogue brews, but I would it has this... It's only a casual format because it's not a PT or GP format. It's not like Commander. It's not like Arch Enemy. It's not like Plane Chase. It is a competitive format.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things that people are going to have to get through to them is yes, it's cheap. No, it is not casual. This is a format where you get to play old school Magic if you want to. There are turn 4 combos. There's turn 4 aggro decks. Easily, goblins can turn 4 without even thinking about it.
Without even Goblin Grenade, they could turn for you.
Exactly.
They just need Fire Blast, Bolt.
There are some powerful plays in this format, and I do not recommend this format for people who are just oh yeah, I like to play Magic with my friends.
Would you recommend Drake combo as we were just talking about that deck? Would you recommend the two decks we talked about, Drake combo and Pig Trinket? Do you think those are casual Magic decks?
No. Pig Trinket is one of those decks where you have to sit there and you have to run odds in your head constantly.
These are both incredibly complicated decks, and
or Teachings. Would you recommend Teachings to a new player?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think we have a reputation of being a casual, underpowered format, and it's just not true. If you're listening to this podcast, I know you agree with us. So I know we're preaching to the choir here. Something else that you touched upon that I found interesting was that you said Pauper's cheap. One of the other complaints that people have had about it potentially being a GP format is that it'll get more expensive.
Card spikes will be real because Mono Black Control is one of the top decks. Chainer's Edict already had an artificial buyout. What happens when there's a real buyout?
Or Oubliette.
Yeah, Oubliette's already at $30?
Yeah, it's crazy. But my counter argument to that is, if Pauper is more popular, the card prices will go up. But if the reason you don't want Pauper to be popular is because you don't want the card prices to go up, you are some kind of Austin hipster. And I live in Austin. It's you don't want people to play the format because you're worried about your own bottom line, and that's incredibly selfish.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a moment.
Okay, go ahead, because I just said some pretty. I voiced my opinion very strongly, so please do.
So look at our own play group. What would you say the average age of a player is?
Like, we've got a lot...
Now, that's not fair, because a lot of these kids are also playing Legacy, so money is no object to them.
True, but some of them aren't. Some of them are just playing Pauper. I'm referring to those. Like, there's the crowd of, like, 13-year-olds who come with their decks, and, you know, I don't want to, like, completely write off the money thing. I do agree with you. It will still be a cheap format. Like, you're still going to not spend as much as a modern or even a standard deck on most Pauper decks. But, you know, I can see the issues that people have with it. It's definitely, like, I can see both Battle Screech and Chainer's Edict being $10 cards.
But this is so solvable. None of these common cards are on the reserve list.
That's true. Like, they could get reprinted.
Yeah, this is very solvable. I'm not saying they're going to be in a standard format, but, like, look at what EMA did for us. Look at the drop in Ancestral Mask and Pyroblast and Hydroblast and Daze. Like, it's easy for them to reprint these cards.
And these ones are ones where they can just wholesale reprint them. Like, those are... Honestly, like, those two could be reprinted in a standard set with flashback.
Yeah, the only issue is that Oubliette is not going to see a reprint outside of a non-standard set. Or, you know, it just can't. It's too complicated.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen what it would look like with all the text written out? It verges on, like, your Animate Dead point, where it's, like, tiny, tiny text, and none of it makes sense. So I feel like Oubliette's definitely one which would be tricky to reprint outside of a supplemental set, a la Eternal Masters.
That being said, there's no reason they can't print a functional reprint of Oubliette.
Yes.
Because the mono black deck wouldn't run more than 2 of them anyway, so there's no reason to run 8.
So, I mean, I guess, is there a point where we could see, like, basically the Journey to Nowhere text, or the fixed Journey to Nowhere text?
But that being said, as soon as I say that, I'll recant that by saying that is no longer a black mechanic at all.
Okay, so what about... They get a little color pie breaky with Commander. You get weird stuff that can't exist anywhere else.
Well, let's say Oubliette's in a Commander set, then. That'd be fine.
Yeah, that would actually drag the price down pretty well. Commander reprints have a habit of doing that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, we've actually diverged from our topics. So.
But okay, so Pauper GP.
Yeah.
I would definitely go. Like, I'm all for, like, going to GP, even if I just play in side events. Like, they're fun.
Well, and here's something else that people have brought up. What if Pauper events were just side events at a GP? I would still go. I would still play.
Oh, hell yeah. If someone said, like, oh, there's a 64-person, like, Pauper side event here with cash prize, or even, like, win a box, I'd still go to that, and I'd be like, yeah, let's jam some Pauper. Let me grind this out.
But again, the issue is that the moto list and the would it be up to the retailer or the tournament organizer to say this is the ban list, this is what is allowed, this is what's not allowed?
Well, I think in all likelihood, what would happen if Wizards Net doesn't speak on this personally, I think we'd just see the Card Kingdom ban list kind of become the default.
Yeah, because they're already running that tournament. So.
They're already running Rags to Riches. They're already having great results with it. And the ban list isn't that much more extreme than most house ban lists for people who run the combined pool. And the other stuff that you get outside of, like, High Tide, Merchant Scroll, all those, like, isn't that great? Like,
Draftness Restoration comes to mind.
Draftness Restoration. I've seen people run Library of Lang as sideboard tech. Like, you wind up with all this jank that, like, has its place, but there's nothing game breaking outside of the Card Kingdom ban list.
Yeah, which, to recap, is him, High Tide, Scroll,
Goblin Grenade,
and Sinkhole.
Yes. So I think banning Sinkhole is good just in terms of, like, economics for the format. I don't think it's that busted. I think
no, and I don't even think it's a 4 in the decks that want it. Like, in mono black control, I don't think you should play 4 main deck land destruction spells. It's not bad. It's not good against, like, Delver.
Do you think it would replace Choking Sands in the side?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because it does help you in the mirror.
Because you don't care about the burn.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes some games you do, but so I think, a Pauper GP could really help it, and it would be interesting to see what gets brought to the table by higher level players. Because, we've been brewing for a long time in this format, and, it's pretty well solved, but I'd love to see what,
LSV.
LSV would probably... I feel he would show up with one of the great decks.
LSV played Familiars when he played Pauper before it was banned. Because he said it's like playing a totally different format. Because that deck was so busted.
And I definitely think, like, you'd see, like, some brewers show up and have weird takes on decks. So I do think it could have a very positive effect on the format as a whole. If
that's so funny, right? Because I was reading Reddit the other day, go Reddit, and someone was saying like, "Oh, our format's not solved," and it's like, what? Where have you been for the past 3 years when Delver's been the top tier deck?
Well, I think there's a difference between solved and established. I think we're an established format in that there are these archetypes that are always going to be good unless a key card gets banned. And
how do you differentiate that from solved?
I would say solved is a format where you don't have an ebb and flow of archetypes. Like, think about...
Well, that's never going to happen in Pauper, I don't think.
How much does Vintage change unless there's a ban?
I mean, it changes.
It changes very, very slowly. Shops, Storm...
There's an Eldrazi deck in Vintage now.
Yeah, but it takes major things for that format to change.
All right, Mike. But you're also talking about a format that has way more cards in it than Pauper does.
But I think that's an example of a solved format versus an established format.
Gotcha.
Like,
but then I guess I don't think Pauper is solvable.
Exactly. I think there's just enough play where, if Delver becomes really dominant, people start playing decks that are better against Delver.
Yeah, people start playing 8 Blast.
Yeah, like you wind up with like just these minor revisions to the meta, and I think that's what keeps it from being a quote-unquote solved format. Like, there is still room for innovation. There's room for meta shifts, and I think that's the big difference. So, yes, it's super established, and I can guarantee you if there was a GP like this and pros showed up, I'm guessing it's mostly Delver, Mono Black, and like maybe a kitty player or two, and whatever combo is efficient at the time. But I don't think that we're completely solved per se. So I think it would be good for the format personally, and I would definitely go to it. I would probably spend more money to travel to a Pauper format GP than I should. But
what would you play?
What would I play? Ooh, that's tricky.
I play Affinity. So
you play Affinity because it's the deck you put in the most hours with, and it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, we're going into this blind. I would expect the mid-go meta. Like, I would say like probably 10% Delver, a decent amount Stompy, some Jeskai Kitty, some Mono Black Control, some Drake, and assorted other stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd expect some amount of elves. I think the big thing would be I'd pick a deck, and then I'd tune the sideboard really heavily for the meta.
So you wouldn't just play Pig Trinket?
I would strongly consider it, just because I do think it's a deck with a lot of, like, 50-50 matchups, and then a few really good matchups, and then a few bad matchups. Because what do you need to go... What do you need to day 2 a GP? It's like 3 losses or less, or 2 losses?
2 losses or less.
2 losses or less against a huge field. I feel like I'd have an okay chance of pulling that off. I'm not going to, toot my horn too much and say that I could, 9-0 of day 1 at a GP. But like,
I've never made day 2 of a GP.
Yeah,
that's my shame.
But I think it wouldn't be like outside the realm of possibility that I could day 2 something with Pig Trinket. I'd probably play it because it's the deck that I feel the most comfortable with because I've logged the most hours with it.
Yeah.
So I'd probably just go with something where I'm like, I know how to play this deck. I know how to mulligan it. I know how to sideboard really efficiently. I would probably just go with that, like, to be totally honest. And it's more just the fact that I'd rather be comfortable in the deck I'm playing than play the tier 1 deck.
Yeah.
Because I do feel, again, much like Legacy, we're a format that rewards knowing your own deck and knowing the meta.
Yeah, completely agree.
So I'd probably show up with Pig Trinket. Woo! I might even, splurge a little and foil some of it out, but...
Foiling?
Yeah. I mean, if there's a chance I'm going to be on camera, hell yeah, I'm going to show up and flex the out of this format. Although those foil Crypt Rats are going to suck, because it's the 7th.
Yeah.
It'd have to be the 7th edition, and those are like, I think, $30.
Wow.
And they're ugly.
Yeah.
They're real ugly. I really like the Mirage Visions.
It's just like a gang of leering red-eyed rats on a barrel or something.
7th was dodgy for art quality.
Yes. The duress from 7th. Ugh, it's hideous. The corrupt from 7th, equally hideous.
Yeah, but in a lot of cases, it's first foiling or only foiling for some of those.
Yeah.
I do like the Merfolk Looter from 7th, but, I've had to do this because I was on vacation and I was like, let me just go through and figure out how to upgrade my cube because I hate myself and I want to spend a ton of money on cards. And as it turns out, a peasant cube can get quite expensive. I think I did it out and it's like, it would be $3,000 to foil out my cube. And that's not money I just have lying about.
Yeah, the foil Crypt Rats from 7th is $25.
Yeah. Maybe I wouldn't foil out the whole thing. Maybe I'd foil out parts of it. Actually, I could foil out my Trinket Mage targets. So that way I can find them quicker as I go through.
You could foil your Trinket Mages.
Yeah.
They're only $7.
Jeez. But yeah, no, I think a Pauper GP would be good for the format. I think I would definitely try and get out there. Probably try and get there a little harder than I should. I'd love to do like a write-up of my day one and further if I can get there. But I think it would be good for the format.
Okay, that's fair.
What's your closing thoughts on the matter?
I think it'd be good for the format too. I think it would attract a lot more people to play, and I would like to see high-level players playing the format.
Oh, definitely.
I think it would lend us the credibility we deserve.
Yes, I definitely think it would make Pauper viewed as more legitimate of a format, and I think that's been happening in ways. Like, the Community Super League did Pauper 1 week, and I definitely saw more posts after that week.
Well, and the Gauntlet of Greatness right now is Pauper.
It is. Oh boy, there have been some stressful matches in that, because watching people who are not familiar with this format play it is sometimes painful. And
yes.
Watching Hall of Famer Randy Buehler do things like not Doomblade a target at end of turn with teachings when he had no other play was just like...
The target was Niv Mizzix Cyclops, too.
Yeah, it was a Nivix Cyclops. The opponent had no mana open, so there's nothing they could have done to protect it. He just had a clear shot of it, and I was just like, no, Randy, why are you doing this to me? No! Like, that, it's a little painful to watch that. But... Alright, as our last topic for the day, we're going to talk about a card which has been referred to as the best card in Legacy. And it's illegal in our format. It's Brainstorm. And the question is Brainstorm good in Pauper?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
No, it is not. The reason being is that our shuffle effects are not good. And by that I mean Evolving Wild, Terramorphic, Tutor Basic that comes into play tap. So the best time to brainstorm is on your own turn when you can shuffle away the cards you don't want and then play another spell. Brainstorm then, in our format, essentially costs 2 mana to play optimally. And if you're doing it at the end of your opponent's turn, you're losing tempo. So it's just not as good. Either you have to pay essentially 2 mana for it, or you lose a huge tempo advantage by playing at the end of your opponent's turn. And it's just... It's I mean, sure, that's fine, it's card selection, but it's nowhere near as good as it is in Legacy, and that's why decks like Delver don't play it. Even with, yeah.
So what about, let me hit you with something else. No shuffle effects. It's played in Blue-Black Delver Angler. The turbo get stuff in my graveyard.
I just don't agree with that.
Well, in there...
They have shuffle effects.
They're not majorly using the shuffle effects. They're
Yeah.
majorly using their thought scours and their mental notes.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense, because then you put back the 2 cards you don't want, or the 2 you want in your graveyard, and then you mental note them, and then you just get rid of them totally.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can...
But that's still not as good, because you have to spend 2 spells to do this.
Yes, I definitely think that it is not as powerful as it is in Legacy or Vintage or... as it would be in Modern, because it's not legal there, and I don't think it ever will be, because I think that Wizards realized, hey, our fixed version of Ancestral Recall is still busted.
Yeah, instant speed card draw is always going to be busted.
Well, so what about this? What about a deck that runs 4 Squadron Hawks and some amount of the fetch lands? Is that enough shuffle effects to take full advantage of it?
No. I just don't think so. Because you're still talking about using 2 spells to set up this Brainstorm. You know, the reason it's good is because it's land Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's a minimal investment.
So, I guess my thing is that, yes, it's not as good. What if we had, say, the Mirage fetches? Are you familiar with those?
What do they do?
So the Mirage fetches, I can only remember Bad River out of the whole
I know their names, but I don't remember how they tutor.
So it comes into play tapped,
Yeah.
and then you tap and sack them to get an untapped land of one of two types.
That would be much better. Yes, because it would delay you a turn on the Brainstorm. That at least when you cast the Brainstorm, you would still be able to take advantage of the mana.
So I'm actually a very, very big proponent that those should, A, get a complete cycle, because there's only allied colored ones right now, because they were from a time where allied colors got stuff that other colors didn't. And I think that it would help, because you can pop one of these down turn 1, pass the turn, see what your opponent does. You get one more turn of knowledge before you can crack it. And the fact that it does come in untapped is pretty good in my mind.
Yeah, that's the whole reason I don't think the Brainstorm works. And that requires a little bit more setup than it would in Legacy, but at least you still get to take advantage of that mana.
Exactly. You do get, Brainstorm into another 1 mana spell, play the 1 mana spell afterwards.
Yeah. Or even if you draw that late, so another thing is, Legacy players don't use their fetch lands right until they need to, because they want the shuffle effect for the Brainstorm. Or for maybe Ponder.
Exactly.
But if, so you don't necessarily need to crack that fetch right away. You could wait till turn 5 or 6 to do this if you don't need the mana.
Yeah, and I think that definitely gives it a little bit more play. And I also just want to see those cards in our format anyway.
Uh-huh.
I think that, they're different than Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic in a very good way. I think that coming into play untapped is super important. Because it does let you... If it's untapped, it lets you represent multiple combat traits. Like in a black-green deck, do they have Disfigure? Do they have Vines of Vastwood?
Yeah.
In, let's say, a blue-red deck, do they have Lightning Bolt? Or do they have,
Counterspell?
Dispel.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit more play, and it makes your opponent have a harder time figuring out what answers you might have in hand.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And the fact that it comes in tapped is, obviously not awesome, but, they're not going to print fetch lands at common, real fetch lands at common, They just...
Yeah.
They're just not.
Well, actually, I have a question. How bad do they have to make a fetch land to print it at common? Like a full-on styled fetch land where it comes in untapped and it gets an untapped basic.
You would have to pay mana for the effect.
All right, how much life?
I think the life is negligible. If they made me...
If they made you bolt yourself.
I think I'd be willing to... Oh, man, I was going to say, I'm willing to go to, maybe... Yeah, 3. I guess 3. Yeah. I guess 3 is as high as I would go.
If you had to bolt yourself, would you play those fetches?
No.
I'd consider it in some decks.
No, because that would make goblins insane.
Yeah, I guess that is one of the reasons Burn is so good in Modern, because people's life totals start at 15.
Yeah. It would make Burn insane. It would make red decks way too good. So that I don't think that could be it. I think the highest mana wise I would go would be 2, because we've seen that on the new Evolving Wilds.
I think it comes in tapped still.
Yeah, and that's terrible. But because you have to pay mana for tapped land. Yeah, but if it came in untapped, then I could see it maybe.
But it still requires you to leave 2 open, so unless you're fixing into another color, it still feels bad to me.
Yeah, there's just no way they're going to print, sack this for an untapped fetch land and pay a life, and it comes into play untapped at common.
Yeah.
That's there has to be some sort of huge downside for it to be uncommon or common.
But yeah, I think the Mirage fetches, if we got a complete cycle of those, that would be great for the format.
I wouldn't even mind if you had an Evolving Wilds equivalent where it could only tutor basics. It only tutors basics, but it comes in tapped. Oh no!
So you're saying
the Evolving Wilds comes in tapped.
Yeah,
and then you get a basic.
Actually, I could see them printing that. It seems it seems negligible as a side upgrade, but I think the reason I would prefer the 2-color ones is just because then you can pack more in, and it does enable multicolor in this format. It enables your 3-color decks a little bit better. And it lets you be a little bit looser with your mana base.
Yeah.
If you only have 4 of these, tutor a basic land comes into play untapped effects, I'm a little less eager to play them.
Of course, another reason fetch lands aren't as good at Pauper is because there are no tutorable duels.
Yes, we can't fetch up duels, and we're never getting that. Don't even fool yourself for a minute.
How could we? All those cards are rare.
Yeah, they're never going to do that. Although I did see someone at one point talk about what if they shifted the pain lands to common.
That's too powerful.
Too powerful?
That's too powerful.
Okay.
I think that's way. I think that, with the precedent that they have set for color fixing at common, where everything comes into play tapped, like no, they're not going to do that.
Either comes into play tapped or it's a filter land like Shimmer and Grotto or Unknown Shores.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I think if we got a better shuffle effect on a land, Brainstorm would be more playable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's a mistake people make because it's like it's Brainstorm. It is the best card in Legacy. It's restricted in Vintage.
But crazy cards are restricted. Lodestone Golem is restricted in Vintage. Lodestone Golem is really good. It's not restricted in Legacy though because there's no it just doesn't need, it doesn't need to be.
And there's no Moxen and there's no Mishra's Factory.
Exactly.
Those are both the problems.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of those things you got to get over in Pauper is like, yes, this card is good in X format. It might not be good in ours.
Look at Nimble Mongoose. We were on the Nimble Mongoose hype train. We have an episode titled "The Goose is Loose," but Nimble Mongoose has turned out to not be very good.
To be fair, I really just wanted to make an old O.J. Simpson reference, and no one was ever going to stop me from that. But at the same time, yeah, Nimble Mongoose has been a Legacy playable card for ages, and it's just not very good in our format.
And it's because we don't have
fetches.
It's because we don't have fetches, yeah. It's because fetch Brainstorm isn't good, and it's because we don't have a lot of... let's think through it. Yeah, it's because Brainstorm fetches aren't good. That's all it is. Because that you can only run 8 fetches in your deck, and most of those Legacy decks are running more like 10.
Yeah. I think that's a big factor in that whole thing, and I think it's one of those things where we do have a tendency as a group, Pauper players, to say this card is good in another format. It has to be good here, and I think that's oftentimes a fallacy. Like I think we all get suckered into it. Like we definitely got suckered into it with Nimble Mongoose, and we were like, yeah, Legacy staple, got to be good here. And in reality, you got to kind of look at it in the context of the rest of the format.
Well, there was no good Threshold deck already.
Exactly.
And Tordex didn't want it.
No, Tordex doesn't want a Shroud 3/3.
Yeah.
Tordex wants value.
Then it's also like a 3/3 gets like... I was watching Caleb Durward play Rug Delver, and he's like, Nimble Mongoose isn't really a turn 1 threat, it's more like a turn 5 or 6 threat. And in Pauper, turn 5 or 6 is Gurmag Angler. And it's like, your 3/3 is not going to stack up against that.
Exactly. Also, like, the fact it trades with Delver, which is an honest-to-goodness one drop with very, very little setup cost.
Well, and the final thing, I think the final nail in the coffin here is that the best removal on our format is Chainer's Edict.
Yes. Shroud is a little worse when you're dealing with Edict effects as your preferred method of removal.
Yeah.
So I can see why we all got suckered by it.
Yes.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, we got suckered.
Yeah. And we fell into the Nimble Mongoose trap.
I still feel there's a chance someone figures out how to make it work, but it's just the setup cost on it is so high for a minor reward. Like, I think you could probably get to Threshold on turn 3, but a 3/3 on turn 3 doesn't do super exciting things for me.
That would require, like, Gataxian Probe also, right?
I was thinking more, a green-red option where you're
Manamorphose?
You're running like Manamorphose, you're running Faithless Looting, you're running stuff just to fill up.
But if you're doing that though, then you're trying too hard to make the Nimble Mongoose work.
Well, you could also run Werebear. You could run other threshold
I
stuff.
think Werebear is a better card in Pauper than Nimble Mongoose because Werebear becomes a 4/4 and he taps for mana, both of which are very relevant.
Yes, and I think Shroud honestly kills it for me. If it was hexproof, I think that Nimble Mongoose would be everywhere.
Then you could put. Then at its worst, it's another Boggle.
Yeah,
because the Boggles are all 1/1s.
And at best, it's
a 3/3.
It's a 3/3 that they still can't kill.
Yeah, it's a bigger Boggle. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I definitely think that Shroud is one of those cases where hexproof was a much better ability. Yeah. So good, in fact, they don't even do it that much anymore. It's gone the same way as protection from colors. But
so here's the thing. Sorry, keep going. I'm going to totally veer off in another direction.
Oh no! Let's hear.
I was thinking actually the other day, and I was talking about it at FNM. If they unbanned cranial plating, just cranial plating, they're not going to do it. I think I would drop Atog and run Guardian of the Guild Pact.
Ooh.
Because Guardian of the Guild Pact is kind of that champion.
That's real spicy. So what kills it at that point? Terminate?
Agony Warp.
Ooh. That makes me feel bad.
But, well, I mean, yeah, but like, so, because then I would play 4 Ornithopters, 4 Vault Scourges, standard affinity, but I wouldn't need ATOG anymore. Because ATOG is good, because ATOG and Cranial are non-bow. So get away from the fling plan, go into the evasive creature plan.
The almost unkillable threat. The thing I have wanted to be good in Pauper for so long.
Guardian?
Yeah,
Guardian is good because most decks can't deal with it.
But it's only a 2/3. It has no flying.
If you could put cranial plating on him, though.
Oh god, I'm already having like cold sweats about this. Like I know I'm gonna like dream about this.
I'm just saying. I thought about it the other day, and I think it's actually awesome. So.
I think it would be great. I think it would be fun to play. I don't think it would be fun to play against him.
No, well, he's a 4-drop, so I don't know. It might not be awesome, but
by turn 4, are you going to tell me you don't have lethal with those 2 cards?
I probably do because
exactly.
I have 4 Ornithopters, 4 Vault Scourges, cranial plating. Oh man, this deck sounds so sweet.
Yeah, and it's never happening.
No, they're never. Well, they have to ban one or the other, right? And if they unban cranial and ban the artifact when its affinity is not an archetype anymore, so
yeah. Well, then you wind up with like kind of a Metalcraft thing, I'd imagine.
But it's not very good because the reason it's good is because your lands are artifacts.
Oh, true.
But sure, whatever. Sorry to digress there, but I wanted to talk about Guardian of the Guild Pact with cranial plating.
But yeah, I think our firm conclusion is like Brainstorm is just not there in our format.
Yes,
like
Brainstorm is just not there.
It needs something else to make it worth running. But I think that just about does it for today. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be, being able to talk about Magic again instead of having to hide it away like some shameful nerd hobby that it is. So remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. We are on iTunes and Google Play Music, although that one I think is getting a little glitchy and not pulling our newer episodes. So I'm going to have to figure that out at some point. If you like us, if you follow us if you subscribe to us on iTunes, we would love if you could leave a review. We've gotten a couple, but it does really help us out. It helps us become a little bit more visible. Anything you can do to help us spread to more viewers and listeners is great.
Hey, we appreciate your part in our world domination plan. If you didn't like it, tell your enemies. That'll get them.
So if you have an idea for a discussion topic or a deck list you want us to talk about, you can use the contact form on our website. You can contact us through Twitter or Facebook, or email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com.
And finally, our
theme music
is brought to you by L. You can find him on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/LLL.
I'm Michael Petchek.
And I'm Adrian Rosales.
Signing off for Color Commentary.